Hello BookTube, it's Jess here and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about some of the books that I have read from the Man Book Along list so far, and also I've got a quick little book haul of some of the other books that I've managed to get hold of so that you've got an idea of the books that I'm going to get to next. So the first book from the Man Book Along list that I've read is Exit West. Exit West is by the author Mohsin Hamid, and it is a story set in a city of conflict. It's an unnamed city done intentionally so that it could be any city that's going through some kind of conflict. And in this we follow the story of Nadia and Saeed, who are just starting a relationship as their city falls and becomes more and more embroiled in conflict. So the people in this city are now trying to find ways to leave the city. They're not safe there anymore. They're losing loved ones. They are seeing really horrific, harrowing scenes on a daily basis. Nadia and Saeed begin to try and find a way out of the city, and they hear of these black doors that are appearing through which you will arrive in a city west. So they make arrangements and manage to buy a passage through one of these doors. We follow them from city to city as they try to make new life in a place where they feel safe, at the same time as having to deal with meeting new conflict from the natives of that country who are unwelcoming, or from other immigrants that are coming through the doors, other refugees that are trying to find their own safe space, but that's causing conflict as they are finding themselves in these very cramped conditions, or all trying to share the same resources as the nativist attitudes of the places that they're arriving at are trying to keep them zoned. I enjoyed this story. It is at times harrowing and heartbreaking, and the themes it deals with are very current and really important to today. It's following the current refugee crisis, and it's trying to look at the reasons why people leave their homes, why they try and find that different space. And I think this is a really important book for lots of people to read, to help them to understand why refugees leave their home cities and home countries. The love story between Nadia and Saeed is a very quiet love story. It's very real. My difficulty is I didn't connect with them as characters, and this is perhaps intentional. At times in the story, Nadia and Saeed can't connect with one another because of what they're going through, so it feels like as readers we are being held at a distance also. We have an unnamed city. This could be happening anywhere in the world, somewhere in conflict, and Nadia and Saeed are representing anybody that it could be happening to. So I don't think we necessarily have to get to know them as characters, because they are the embodiment of anybody going through having to leave their home because of war or other conflict, and the experience of that journey and what happens when they arrive in a new place. There are parts of this book that are quite hard reading, and there are some really horrific things that are happening that you are getting descriptions of, and yet it's told in a very matter-of-fact way, which I think is to suggest how much of these horrendous sights that they're having to see now in their city on a day-to-day basis, that it's almost becoming normalised. I would recommend this book. I gave this 3.5 stars because it was that struggle to connect with the characters that I found hard, although I think I understand why it was done in that way. But the themes are what are important in this book, and I would definitely recommend giving this one a read. The second book I got to then is Sebastian Barry's Days Without End. This story is essentially a love story between Thomas McNulty and John Cole. They meet as orphaned boys and fall very quickly into a really comfortable companionship, and the story follows their life together. This is a very quiet and very real love story which takes place during the Indian Wars and the American Civil Wars, and Thomas McNulty and John Cole are taking part in those wars as part of the American Army. Although this book spans only about 30 years, it feels like a much longer time that you've spent with Thomas and John by the end of it, and you really feel like you know them. The characters are really well developed. It's told in the first person through the voice of Thomas McNulty, and it's like having a conversation with a friend. He is telling you and sharing with you the story of his life. And he has a really clear voice, which to begin with was quite difficult to read, and I had to read it out loud because it's in his accent and in his dialect, which is this sort of Irish American accent. This is not a story about a homosexual relationship that's having to be concealed, or about two men fighting against their feelings that they're having for each other at a time when homosexuality wasn't accepted. And I think quite often that's a storyline that's used, which I can completely understand, as that's obviously a lot of people's experiences, but this puts into a historical context just a really beautiful story of a relationship between two men. It's not the drama of having to conceal their relationship, although it is concealed, and I thought that was really fantastic. I absolutely fell in love with the character of John Cole. Again, he's quite a reserved character, and the snippets that we get of him told through Thomas, they don't give much away, but you know how much Thomas loves him. Thomas's love for John really comes through in the way that he speaks about him, and as a reader you just fall in love with him too. It's lines like, "The moonlight not able to flatter him because he was already beautiful." Or there's another point in the story when he's explaining who survived from a flood that happens, and he says, he's explaining that him and John Cole have managed to survive, and he says, "Me and John Cole, thank God, John Cole," and it just speaks so much of how important John Cole is to him, and that he would be lost without him. I would highly recommend this and gave it a rating of 4 stars. Those are the 2 books that I've read from the long list so far, and now I'm going to share with you a few of the books that I've managed to pick up. Yesterday I bought The Ministry of Utmost Happiness by Arundhati Roy. I am currently on page 44 of this one. I'm finding this one quite hard. There's lots of cultural references that I don't get. They're talking about like places in India and gods or deities that they're speaking about that I don't understand the importance of. So I think I'm going to have to do a little bit of alongside research with this one. But I am enjoying the story, so I'll keep on going with this one. Then I also picked up Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad. So this is a story of Cora, who works on a slave plantation, and it follows her escape through the Underground Railroad. So it makes it a real railroad that they are able to escape to places of safety to. So I'm really interested to follow the story of that one and learn a little bit more about the history of the Underground Railroad alongside that too. Finally, I managed to pick up from my library Zadie Smith's Swing Time. This one is probably one that doesn't appeal to me so much. This is about 2 girls who dream of being dancers, and it's set in London, New York and West Africa. And I think it's just following the story of them trying to make it as dancers. I think one's supposed to be a better dancer than the other, and following their friendship. So there's not really anything about this that I'm dying to get to, but I've never read any Zadie Smith before, so I thought I would give this one a go and see how I get on. That's just a quick update then with how I'm getting on with my Man Book a Long List challenge so far. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of any of the books that I've read so far. I'd love to have a conversation about Exit West and Days Without End down in the comments below. It's been really great to hear some of your comments about a lot of you who are trying to read the long list too, or are tackling lots of the books off the long list. So I'm really excited to have some conversations about those books with you all soon. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.